Welcome, listeners, to An Industry's Insight, the podcast where we're all about the interviewees who have been or are still in the music, publishing, marketing, film, advertising, managing business, and more. I'm your host, Thomas Grabuznik, and let's get right into it. So here today we have...
I'm Kevin Hughes. I am one half of Hawk Recording Studios. Like and follow Mixed by K Hughes on some Instagrams. I do some things with some audios. And by audios, I mean I make people sound good.
So your company is called Hawk.
Yeah.
And what does that mean?
So, as I said before, I'm one half of Hawk. The other half is Akai Williams. We came up with the name just from our initials alone. We're just like, what's a good studio name? And he actually came up with the idea of Hawk. And I was like, why Hawk? He's like, it's literally our initials. And I was like, it, let's go with it. It sounds dope AF. Then I went ahead and I did like a basic design for the logo and everything. I sent it out.
Yeah, pretty basic, the Hawk.
I mean, yeah, it's pretty basic, but like it's exactly what I wanted. So like I can't argue at all.
Yeah.
Plus like the templates that I stole it from.
Still looks good. It's not like...
In a sense, like it's technically an original piece because the template was a lot different, and I sent it to a graphic designer, and I was just like, yeah, make it look pretty. And then I was like, boom, here you go. And I was like, oh, okay, works for me, I guess.
So, how did you and Akai meet?
We actually met through Five Towns. Fun fact. Akai was originally my essay in my third audio class that I went ahead and I did. Essay, by the way, is studio assistant for the school, which is like overlooking the studios. We met there. He liked what I did and was enjoying of how I was doing my work. And so we were like, hey, let's work together on some more things. So we went ahead, we did a couple of songs, and here we are.
When and why did you get into engineering?
Okay, so this is an interesting story, and we'll start it like this. I actually started doing sound in about like the 7th grade or 8th grade with my church a little bit. So it started and originated there. Then fast forward to sophomore year of high school, there was a class that was offered called Music Production and Engineering. I was like, all right, I'm intrigued. I kind of want to see what it is. And from there, it was like a bare bones class that like started in GarageBand. So kudos to GarageBand. Anyway, so we started with GarageBand and we were messing around from there. Then I went to BOCES, that's right here on Dix Hill, so Wilson Tech. I went there. I did 2 years with the audio program, which got me going with Pro Tools and Logic with that, and now I'm here.
So you were not self-taught, or would you say you're half and half?
I would say it's definitely a decent half and half because you have to understand one thing. People can go ahead and show you how to use the software, but they can't teach you creativity. That's something that you have to learn on your own and everything. It's not like, it's written out in a book like, oh, you have to do this, you have to do that. Because that's not what this industry is about at all. It's all opinionated, and some people don't understand that whatsoever. Because they think like, oh, it's this way or the highway. Whereas that's not really true because you can go ahead and do one thing a certain way. Someone can disagree with you, do it a completely different way, but still make it sound good. So like it's half and half. Yeah, I am school taught in a sense, but really the school taught me how to use the software, a little bit of the hardware, and then the rest of it, it's just me reading, a lot of experimenting and just trying different things to go ahead and see what it sounds like and then move along from there.
So you came to Five Towns first? Did you go to any other colleges?
No, Five Towns is where I started and where I'll be finishing by the end of this semester.
Did you have any other colleges in mind before coming to Five Towns?
I actually had a bunch of colleges that I did want to attend to, but because of financial reasons and me sort of being really, really lazy, I didn't go to them. I mean, yeah. I was like, it's either, all right, do I go to Five Towns or do I fly out to Florida for 2.5 years? Do I move to Philly or do I move all the way to Boston? And I was like, I could do all of these, but in reality, I'm going to make money and probably save money if I just commute to here. So it's just more like, do I want to commute multiple hours or do I want to commute 10 minutes and still see my family? So I was like, all right, done deal. I can't complain with that.
Okay, so it was about traveling.
It was mostly traveling, and it was a combination of like I really couldn't afford the other schools. Like if I could, I would have went to like either Full Sail or Art Institute. And while I was actually here, I was thinking of transferring to like NYU, but it went through everything. Like I got accepted, which I thought was cool. But then they're like, "Oh, here's your potential bill," and I was like, "All right, I'm going to happily decline, thank you." Because I didn't have $63,000 just to spend on a semester.
Yeah.
And I was like,
I know how you feel.
No.
I mean, would you say it was worth it?
No, yeah, absolutely, because I made the best out of it. That's a strong issue that like some people don't understand about this school is like if you just commute in and leave right away and you don't do any of the extra activities that are there, you don't put in the effort with your work or utilize all of the things that you can use, you're going to hate it. And I know people that went here left early because they hated it. I asked why, and their simple reaction was like, I mean, I commuted, I went to class, and then I went home. And I was like, well, no, you're not going to have fun or anything because you're barely doing anything. Like, I will admit this right now. I regret not doing anything my freshman and sophomore years only because I'm having so much fun junior year and I am having so much fun right now. And that's why it's kind of like a bittersweet thing that like
It's
I'm
because
leaving
you
and
met
everything.
us, that's why.
Let's agree to disagree. Anyway, so more of like you have to make the best for you. Like we have great here at the school and people don't understand that whatsoever. So like you have to go ahead and weigh your options like, I can go ahead and commute, just get a degree and get the out of here. Or I could come here, bust my off, and then go ahead and use awesome gear that's used in top tier studios and say that, hey, I've used this before, guys. How does that make you feel? I know how to operate this crap and I know how it sounds.
And how to meet people and networking.
Oh, absolutely. There's so much networking that's going on through the school that you have no idea. Like I send one of my friends, DJ McLovin, a couple of gigs that need a DJ, and I'm sorry, that's just that's not my forte. I prefer doing live sound with like using a board and everything. I can't get behind DJ whatsoever. I've tried, I can't do it. So there's a lot of networking that you can do here because like you're meeting talented people. You don't know who the they know that they might hook you up with something. So it's always, always, always a good idea to like just make the best out of any school that you go to.
Was anyone in your family either an engineer or into music making you want to be an engineer?
I mean, most of my family was musicians. Like my mother was a vocalist, my dad was a drummer. I mean, my parents were like really into music and everything. So like I grew up in a household like filled with music and I couldn't get away from it. And then on my mother's side of it, I had both my cousins go ahead and playing instruments. My uncle was playing a lot of guitar and he somewhat taught me a little bit of guitar. And he actually showed me a little bit of GarageBand because like he did a little recording here and there. And that's what kind of got my interest going and everything. And now we flash forwards and here, and now he's asking me a whole bunch of questions because it's just like, we got this and this, we have that. And he asked me how I can make his stuff sound better, and I tell him, and we work from there. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, my dad always says, like, when I graduate college, gonna build a studio in our house.
How would you compare, or better yet, what would you think would be more beneficial? Or in kind of like the comparison between the two. Someone who wants to go into the audio engineering field can easily go online and see tutorials on how to work stuff. What is, in your opinion, the difference between doing that and coming to a school where you'll be learning all that type of stuff?
Okay. This is a slight touchy subject because you can either offend people by talking about this,
Yeah.
or you can actually educate people on this topic.
Yes.
And this is how it's touchy. So you can have someone go ahead and watch tutorial after tutorial after tutorial after tutorial, and they think that they get it. And when they start talking to someone that, yeah, I go ahead and I do this and this, but when you talk to someone that knows the correct terms and they start spewing them back at them, they're like,
Speaking audio, basically.
what?
Yeah.
And when you start explaining to them that, oh, yeah, you're doing this, that this is that, you get people that will go, oh, I didn't know that. Or you get people like, nah, it's this. And that's where, like, the difference is. Because, like, now it's also the type of person that you are and just how, you bring about yourself. You can get people that will go ahead and understand. Or you get the people that are just like, no, you don't know what the you're talking about. Oh, just because I watched this and this, I know what the hell I'm doing. I'm better than these people. And the thing is that with this industry, yeah, it happens. A lot of people get like that. It just happens. And the people that fight with them are the ones that are trying to prove that they are right.
Yeah.
And which happens. Everyone wants to be right. No one wants to ever be wrong. But you have to be a little bit humble with it, only because it will make you a better person on the inside. And then also, you just don't, it's less stress that you have to deal with.
Don't have much of an ego.
Well, that too. And like, this field is super, super, super egotistical. Like, extremely egotistical. You ask anyone that works in the music industry or any musicians, they know that they know someone that either works in this field or is an artist that is so full of themselves and they just won't admit to it. Or you get the ones that do admit to it and it's like kind of weird and you're just like, alrighty, and you just move on from it. Then at that point, at least like you can have a little bit of fun with them then. But yeah, that's like kind of like the difference. You get the people that will listen and then you get people that just won't listen because they think that what they saw is the way how it goes, and that's it. It's just their way. There's nothing else.
So how would you compare studio recording compared to, say, someone who's recording in their home?
All right, there's actually a drastic difference with that. So someone that's recording in their house means that like they have like an interface, they got a mic, they set it up, and they just slap it on a laptop, for instance, and they call it a day. Now, you can actually get away with home recording if the room is treated properly. If you have the room treated properly, you can easily get a decent sounding song or record going through, and it's just running through a house right now. Like, think of it this way. Skrillex goes ahead and works straight off of a laptop. Like, he works straight off of a laptop, and he's just pumping out record after record after record after record like that. Now, when it's coming to more of a consumer and everything, it's more of you're going ahead and they're just recording their vocals. Sometimes it's not treated, so like it kind of sounds like and everything. And it's audibly heard that like, oh, that kind of sounded like that was in a bedroom in a mix, kind of like that. Now, when it's in a studio environment, that's a completely different story because the studio is already treated. So it's treated acoustically, and generally speaking, the studio is going to have top-tier quality gear at your disposal, which is going to go ahead and get you the sound and the color that you're going to be looking for. So it's really, it's not really the gear. It's not the gear. It's actually a lot of the acoustics and technique. Those are the two things that like really, really can differentiate between someone that records at home and in the studio. Because you can go ahead and go to a studio and the song will just sound disgusting. It has happened. I've heard it. You can go to a studio and just boom, like someone the bed really badly that day and destroyed a song. But still, you can produce and record a song in your house, and if you have the proper treating in it, you can make it work. Like, you can really make it work.
Do you have any engineers or producers that you like admire?
There are a couple of engineers definitely that I do admire. There's Eddie Kramer, who I've been looking up to for a while. I love his mixes. I love what he does because he does things unorthodoxly, and I think that's amazing. Because like I like doing things unorthodoxly and the way how they're not supposed to be done. Just because the arguments are a little bit amusing when you talk to other people about it. I'm just like, yeah, I went and I did this. It sounds great. And then you just get the people that look at you like really oddly, and they're like,
no.
What? No, no, no.
Just all over you, basically.
Basically, they shit all over it. But then they hear it and they're like, oh. It's like one of those. So like that's why I really look up to. I looked up to CLA a lot, or Chris Lord Algae. I looked up to him a lot because like what he does and with the drums especially, because like he hasn't seen drum sounds, and I've watched some of his mix with the Masters seminars. There's a thing that goes around on Slate Digital that they do seminars with him, and I watched that, and it's really incredible of like how it went from one thing and just goes straight to another thing. I think it's awesome, and kind of inspires me to like go ahead and work harder and everything. There's Greg Wells, there's Andrew Sheps, and everyone. Those are like the ones I can think of off the top of my head.
What type of unorthodox things were you talking about? Like, what would be an example of something like that?
It's just like, oh, there's a lot of drum bleed in like one of the microphones. Like, say like your snare drum has just a wicked hi-hat bleed into it because like the person that went ahead and pointed the mic in it, it just had the hi-hat bleed right into it. Most people will go ahead and just immediately start gating it. Now, you can go ahead and gate it. That's by all means go for it if you're looking for like that just instant sound and call it a day. Or you leave the bleed in and you get a fuller sound of the kit. And that's actually something that like you can get into a decent argument with over people. It's like, do you gate everything or do you let things bleed? So that's definitely one thing that you can do. But that's one thing that you can do is just like let everything bleed, and you can actually get like a live sounding kit out of your recording process. Because if you go ahead and you gate everything, it almost sounds like it's MIDI drums, and if you talk to the right person, you're gonna get either people that will shit on you because it's MIDI drums, or people that will love you because it's MIDI drums. It's like a double-edged
50-50.
sword. Basically, you're in a catch-22. It's either this will happen or this will happen. There's no happy medium.
What makes a good session? Because I've asked this to Dino, I've asked this to Resounding and Taylor, all previous people, all musicians. So I want to hear from yours. Because I know I could.
Oh man.
Yeah, I could.
Yeah, because there's a huge difference coming from the artist side, because the artist may think that everything is going great, but then coming from the engineer side, you may be like,
here's the thing with that. The chances of you getting a good session is like once in a blue moon. There's always going to be something wrong. Or at least that's how I think. I always think like something's going to go wrong. Something will either break or something's just not going to work properly. And you have to work around it right away. A good session is just like everything goes smoothly. And by smoothly, I mean the artist knows exactly what they're doing. They just go in like, all right, let's start from here. Let's record up to there. All right, stop. Let's move down to the next part. Let's do some doubles or ad-libs or whatever the hell they want to do. And just moves along. And that's great. That's especially for like vocalists. They just get it and it just goes. Drums especially, like when it's just like, oh yeah, we've been practicing and we can get everything done. And they just bang it out and you're like, oh my God. That just happened. It's amazing. So yeah, like that's one thing. It's like if the musicians go ahead and have everything down, they know what they're doing and such, it just makes life 10 times easier. So like you have that constitutes. But definitely like the musicians that know their and like you just place your mic placements just like on point, and the way how you dialed in your levels and you got your sound out of all of your equipment, just makes life 10 times easier. And when you go ahead and you have like the musicians are good, your sounds are good, that just makes you a better person, and it makes you just like really relax and it makes a really decent session. Like, you can go ahead and I've had this happen to me too, where it's just like, all right, let's do a 3-hour session. Let's get as much done as we can. And I've had people bang out full songs within 3 hours. I've also had people that just work on one verse for the entire 3 hours. So that's actually another thing too, is when they could just bang out all the songs that they need. And it's great, because what just makes things 10 times fucking worse is when they just work on one part and they're just like, it's not right, let's do it again. Yeah, in a sense, you're getting paid for that time, but like, man, is it driving you up the fucking wall. Like, in reality, like, you're thinking like,
you'd rather be sane and less money than being a lot of money and
and going borderline insane. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
and I'll take that any day of the week. I will take the fucking hit just so that I have some sort of composure and sanity left in my life. Because at this moment right now, I'm surprised I'm alive and still sane. Musicians got their shit together. Your gear sounds great, and you have your placement going of where you need it, and everyone's chemistry is working well together, and it just makes everything go smooth, and it's amazing.
So you went to AES
Correct.
this past, when was that? In
October.
October or November?
October? I don't know. Somewhere in the fall.
Well,
We'll go with that
October.
one.
October. It was before Halloween.
How would you describe your experience of being at the convention, and also being able to go?
All right. So the AES that I went to in the fall of 2017 was actually the third AES that I went to. And the difference between the other...
Before you continue, can you
Explain to us what AES is.
Because
some
so
of our
people are going to
viewers-
listen not knowing what the hell you're talking
That's
about.
fine. So AES is the Audio Engineering Society convention that happens biannually in the Jacob Javits Center in the city. And what it really is, it's a ton of audio companies that gather together to showcase their gear. There's seminars going on from like top engineers and producers that will go ahead and do demonstrations with everyone. There's workshops. You can test gear there. It's basically, if you're an audio nut and you have a lust for gear, you're basically just found heaven in a sense. Like, you might have walked in there, thought you died because you just stepped foot in heaven. It's kind of like, it's one of those conventions. Kind of like how, like, if you have like a comic book nerd and they go to Comic-Con and they literally die. It's one of those, except audio. When I go to AES, I literally have the biggest smile on my face because, like, I have a lust for gear. That's usually what I spend most of my time doing. It's just like, oh, what gear is out there? How am I going to blow the little amount of money that I have on new stuff? It's usually one of those. But AES is amazing because you can go ahead and you can see what the new gear is. You can actually find new companies that, like, you were not expecting to be there whatsoever and learn new stuff. So, like, if you wanted to, like, I knew who Barefoot and Focal was. It's a monitoring company. I haven't really heard Barefoot, but apparently there's a lot of top-tier studios that had it, and I had no idea. And, man, the sound that comes out of those monitors is unexplainable. Like, I can't even explain, like, how amazing those sound. And, like, just, like, even though it was in a large environment, like, it was crystal clear. And I was like, all right, that's borderline scary. Moving on.
And they didn't have just gear; they had like new software stuff, plugins.
Yeah. So, like,
did they speak about, what is it? Pro Tools 2018 is what it's called now.
that was at NAMM.
Oh, okay.
That was at NAMM, which is a California-based convention. If I am mistaken, I'm sorry, but if I'm correct, it's out in California. That one happens a lot, actually. I think that one happens every year, in a sense, and that one's actually bigger than AES.
Okay.
That one's like really, really, really big, and they actually do a lot more stuff out there compared to the AES conventions that happen in the city. But anyway, getting way off topic again. It's hardware stuff, it's software stuff. Because Avid's always there, so they're going to showcase Pro Tools, they're going to show off Media Composer, they're going to show off Sibelius. And the greatest thing is that you can go ahead and use that software if like you were thinking of buying it. You can go ahead and play around with it. You can talk to some of the representatives that are there and like ask them questions of what you want to do and such. They had the top tier they had top companies there, like they had Neve, they had SSL, they had API, and they had their boards. All of their boards were out there for everyone that was attending the convention to go ahead and play with, look around and see everything. Because it's marketing. That's marketing right there. It's like, oh, here's our console, guys. Go ahead and play with it. And then you start playing with it, and then you're like, oh my God, I need it now. But then it's just like, oh wait, I don't have that kind of money on me to go ahead and just buy it.
Yeah.
But like they also have stuff that like you can buy there also. Like the work gloves that I got that I use now, I got at AES because there was a startup company that was out there that got a booth. They brought a whole bunch of their gloves there so that anyone can try, and they were just selling them. And a lot of companies do that. Like I think Telefunken sells their M80s there because I almost bought one. Because I was just like, yeah, can I just have this? Because I went on the last day too, and everything. Like besides like the school going, I went on the last day because like usually they sell stuff sometimes to you, or if you're lucky. But compared to the first time that I went, it was a different experience because I kind of knew what the gear was, but not really at the same time. So it was kind of like an eye opener. Like, holy crap, there's a lot more stuff out there than I expected. Then when I went in my sophomore year of college, I was like, all right, I actually understand most of this gear now, and I get it. Then the time that I went just recently, I understood most of it. Not all of it, I understood most of it, and I knew what I was looking at. I knew how to operate some of like the digital boards that they had there, and it was a really insane experience, honestly, because you get to try stuff that like you don't normally get to try unless you're working or you own it. So if you're looking into getting into like gear or new stuff, definitely go to one of those conventions because like they have like stuff that you would never expect there. Like a Digico board. I have never in my life used a Digico board before until I went to AES. And it's just like, oh, this board's amazing and it could do ridiculous things that I did not expect.
Is that like a console?
Yeah, so
Okay.
the Digico it's a digital board. You'll probably find it in a live sound scenario with the way how it functions and everything. But the thing with that board is that you can actually operate it on like a bare bones kind of style because it's really self-explanatory. Yeah, it's a little confusing here and there because of the digital side of it. A lot of people do get turned off and turned away with the digital side of it because like it's kind of intimidating and confusing. But once you understand one board, you kind of got it all in a sense. Like you understand what the terms are. It's just, all right, now it's in a different location. Where is it on this board? It's like one of those.
Yeah.
So
That's learning a new board with anything. So
right. It's learning a new board with anything, but like as soon as you understand where the buttons are that you need to get to certain things, you have it figured out.
To accustom yourself to it. So
basically, yeah. And it's just like, all right, so that's there. All right, so I just got to remember that. Okay, cool. Moving on, going on through. All right, so that's there. And then it's just like, all right, I got it going. So like that's great. So it's one of those. It's with a lot of boards too. Like if with the SSL boards, especially, if you look at a 4000 series compared to like I don't know, I'll throw out a 9000 series, they're almost identical. The only thing that's different is the components that are the inside, and the way how it looks. But otherwise, it operates the way how you expect it to operate. It's one of those. So it's pretty cool. It's fun.
I want to say techniques from like listening to music or whatever. Like you'd be listening to something, be like, man, I want the drums sound like this, or like, you know what I mean? Like
no, I understand the question that's being asked, and it's a yes and no kind of question, because certain songs, the way how they mix them and everything, it could be something that you want, or it could be something that you do not want. So that's called reference mixing right there. So a reference mixing is you have a song that was professionally done, mixed and mastered and such. You go ahead and you listen to it, and now you're like, okay, so let's break it apart. So they have drums, they got bass, they got keyboards, guitars, vocals, reverb, delay, whatever effects they have else, so on and so forth. So you're listening to the drums and you're listening, okay, so the kick sounds like this and the snare sounds like this. Why does the snare sound like it's paper thin compared to this other song where the snare sounds full, but you're not hearing a lot of the snare? So it's just like, what did they do here? And then it made the snare sound like this compared to this song, why it sounded like that. So say we go with song B because you like the sound of the kit and the way how it was mixed and everything. So you're listening to that and you're like, okay, it sounds like this, it sounds like this. How do I do this? And that's where like the magic comes in. So when you're looking at that, you need to figure out how much do I compress it? How much EQ do I throw on it? With the EQ, do I want to use reductive EQ? Do I want to use boost EQ? Do I want to go ahead and re-trigger it for some reason and just use samples throughout the entire time? Which is a technique. You can just go ahead and re-trigger everything. If the song that someone gave you just doesn't sound right and you just don't like it, you can just go ahead and be like, all right, re-trigger it. And then that's another skill actually is like to go ahead and just learn how to re-trigger things. Because you can have bleed in the song and now you're just like, all right, so it's doing extra triggers that I don't want. How do I change that? And it's just rinse and repeat going on like that. But now say you mixed your song, you got your kit going the way how you want it. So you listen to your kit, then you listen to the kit that's on your reference mix. And you're A and Bing it. And you're like, okay, my snare still sounds a little thin, not completely full, but there's compared to the song snare. So now you're going back into post and you're like, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? I could throw maybe a touch of reverb on it to, make it sound a tad fuller. Maybe I'll add a little bit more EQ to it and do something. Maybe I might just re-trigger it and like blend it in something. It's a lot of experimenting. And it's just like, because you can go ahead and you just cut certain frequencies out and be like, oh, I got a snare that sounds like this now. Or like if you have a kit and like the kick's going hard, but it's boomy, but you want it clickier, you can be one of those guys that's just like, all right, let's raise 8K. Now I got a clicky kick. But like if you listen to like any metal or hardcore record, it literally just sounds like that. It's just like click, 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 and you're like, okay, how, and it's really weird because like you can have people that send you stems, and like the pre-production sounds great, like it just sounds great, and now you just do fine tuning to it, or you get the other pre-production where it's just like,
what happened?
What were they thinking? It's like, what the fuck were you doing, guy? But back to what I was saying. So you go ahead and you start EQing, and now you're like, oh, cool. So if I raise it here, I can make the kick drum sound like this. And it's just like, that's actually training yourself. As soon as you start experimenting, you're training. And when you do more and more and more training, it gets your ear listening better, and you can start listening for certain things that you want to hear. It's just a process. You're always learning new stuff.
So, a couple of months ago, you worked on a project with myself. I want to ask you, how would you compare a session like? Okay, so the session that I'm talking about, we recorded the song Hallelujah. It was myself, Matt Pigelli,
Who's actually
who's also
here.
in the room as well.
Just listening.
Monique Deanna and yourself. You also sang on the track.
Yes.
Yeah,
Now-
first and last.
That
Doubt it.
session was an all-day thing where you recorded all four of us, basically different times of the day. Everyone was recorded individually, meaning at the time of recording, no one else was there for each other's parts. You know what I
Correct.
mean? How would you compare a session like that to a session where you're recording a full band all at once? And what would be your technique of recording a band all at once? Like, what would be the order of you recording and stuff like that?
So a band. So is your question what's the difference between doing just vocals and just full band, or is it more of you just want to know how I do my process of recording a full band? Which one do you? Well, I can answer both if you want.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'll answer the second one first.
Okay.
So when I go ahead and I have a full band that I need to record, I like to start with drums right away. Drums are usually it takes the longest to set up. It's the longest to go ahead and get anything done with. So I like to start with the hard one first. But that hard one is actually the basis of the entire song.
Mm-hmm.
The drums is what keeps everyone in time. It's what's keeping the whole song together. Because if you listen to a song with no drums in it, like, let's go ahead and listen to Holiday by Green Day with no drums. It's going to sound weird. Mm-hmm. It will sound weird without drums. So I start with drums first because that's the bassist of most songs is the drums. So you have your bass here. Then you can branch off into practically anything. It's just your choice. So you can go ahead and branch off to bass. You can branch off to guitars. You can do bass and guitars at the same time. So you can, as long as you start with your drums first, you have your bass. After that, everything else works theoretically. I've seen people go ahead and start with vocals first, and I think like that's great and everything, but where the fuck are you in the song? That's my question. Like, how are you keeping track of where you are in the song without any sort of instruments to help back you up by that?
I feel like if you're singing straight to a click track or something like that, you got to know the song like
you have to know
pretty verbatim, like
or have it playing in your head, or
Yeah.
like,
basically
headphones.
like you need to have the song, front and back, inside and out, diagonally, all kinds of forms, just so that you know where you are.
Yeah.
So that's why I always say, start with drums first, because now you have your metronome in a sense, and now it'll just make sense. It helps a lot of people. Sometimes, like, I've had a session where they did drums and piano at the same time. And by piano, I mean, like, they brought in a keyboard, we used MIDI and called it a day, because we didn't have time for just miking up the piano.
Yeah.
We just went that route and called it a day. So you could do that too, which actually does help the drummer too, just to keep track of like where they are in the song, because like depending on like what kind of song it is, like if you listen to the beat and everything, it's kind of repetitive and you can get lost and you're like, all right, how many times did I do this?
Yeah.
I lost track of where I am. All right, I'm gonna keep doing this and then I'm gonna transition into the next part. And then
I've done that before. It's like,
yeah, it just happens. But then you get the musicians on the talkback like, what the fuck are you doing?
what's wrong with you?
What's wrong with you? You piece of shit. So, like, it's as long as you're starting with drums first, you're fine. Now, with the Hallelujah track, I did the music beforehand so that everyone knew where they were. Because if I was just like, yeah, I want you to go ahead and sing like this, you can easily have had one person sing at one tempo, the other person sing at a different tempo, the third and fourth sing kind of the same tempo, but not really. And now you're sitting there and you're like, all right, what the hell do I do now? And it causes a ruckus. It makes your life a living hell, because now you're like, all right, I can go ahead and just go ahead and make it to the beat. I can do that. But now I run the risk of it sounding like crap, because I'm going to either over expand it or I'm going to over compress it. And you don't want to do that, because you don't want to deal with aliasing then. And aliasing just makes your life more miserable. Aliasing, by the way, is digital artifacting, which is if you ever go ahead and you take a clip and you stretch it out and like you hear like that weird sound that like will happen from it, kind of like from a slow-mo video in a sense, from like a camera that really can't do slow-mo. That's what aliasing is, and it sounds disgusting. I hate it a lot. So if you're just doing straight vocals, generally speaking, there's a 2-track beat that's already with it, so that's what keeps you in time. And also, you can just throw a click track on it just so like it helps you still stay in time with the flow and everything. Or you do what I did and you wrote out the instrumentation, recorded it, and now you bring the vocalists in and you get going. So like that's like the other thing. Like I usually like to do vocals last because I feel you would need the other instrumentation to know where your cues are, know where you are in the song, and so that you can somewhat stay in time. So that's why I do vocals last, and I'll do everything else beforehand, because it makes your life easier. Just makes your life easier, man.
How do you balance what you do with other obligations like your partner, your job, school?
It's tough, honestly, because like you go ahead and you fill up time, and it's just like, all right, I'm gonna do this, and I'll call it a day, and like I'll have a little bit of free time. But as soon as you get that free time and you get the text or the call, it's just like, hey, I have a question. Can you come in and
Need
do
help.
this? And it's just like, okay, and you just go. But like, I don't consider this a lot of work because it's something that I enjoy doing. Like, it's not work for me. It's actually really enjoyable. So it makes the time fly, and it keeps my schedule busy, which I like to have. I like to have a busy schedule because if I start doing nothing, I start going insane. And me going insane, probably not good for other people around me. But it's just like, all right, I got to find time for this. Let's find time for that. All right, so I have this blocked out, nothing will get booked. We go from there, and we just move along. And there's just sometimes that, like, I'm walking to something, find out that it gets canceled, walk back, run into someone. It's just like, oh, hey, can we do this? And I'm like, yeah, it canceled, so let's go ahead and do this. So, like, you're always walking into something. Something's always coming into my life. Rather it be work-related or life-related. It's just like, oh, let's go ahead and do this. And it's just like, oh, okay. But it keeps me busy, so like I can't complain, really. Even though I bitch and moan about it. I can't complain.
Just no sleep.
Listen, I gave up sleep about 4 years ago. As soon as I stepped foot in this building. I don't know what sleep is. I take like an hour or two power nap. I wake and get up and continue my day.
All right, last question. Rapid fire. Don't even think about it.
Uh-oh.
What was your favorite session that you've ever worked on?
Be careful. There's three in the room that you're done with.
Well, the person that's to the left of me, that was the worst session of my life.
Wow.
Well, you also have to
I'm kidding.
put
I
it
love you,
into the retrospective that Kevin has worked in various recording studios as well. So it's not necessarily something that you've done on campus. It could be anything off campus as well.
No, I understand that. Except there's just a little bit of pressure in this room right now because I got 3 people that I know for a fact I've worked with.
I won't take any offense if you don't say it.
I mean, it's definitely one of your sessions, one of Dino's sessions that I've definitely done. And it's just like, oh, I go ahead and I do this. All right, have fun. And just you bang it out. And I'm like, all right. I don't need to do much, which is wonderful. Just because like we went in, we did what we need to do, and then we got the out and went on our days. There was definitely one session that I did when I went out to Dream one day because I was just like, we'll record this one person, and it was a rapper, but it was a rapper that was just like, all right, so let's start with the verse and just go, and I was like, oh, I was not mentally prepared for this kind of speed. Mm-hmm. Bangs it out right away. And, like, as soon as he finishes his verse, he's just like, all right, double right away. And I was like, okay. And just, like, kept going. And I was like, wow, this is really different. And I'm not sure if I'm okay with this pace at the moment. But, like, I kind of like it at the same time. And he's just like, all right, ad-libs. I'm like, yes, sir. And just kept going. I'm like, wow, this is a fucking miracle. Then he's like, all right, ins and outs. I'm like, sure. And just kept going. And then like chorus. And I was like, what is happening? Like, what is happening? Like, he was definitely like one of the funner sessions because like it just went boom like that, boom like that. And I was like,
that type of artist is someone who knows exactly what they want in their song, how exactly they want it recorded. They have the aspect of knowing all of the production going into their song. So it definitely helps out the engineer a lot when they know that type of like what they want exactly in the song.
I'm gonna go with yes. I'm also gonna go with no with that.
Okay.
Only because I was just happy I was able to keep up with the pace with it, because pace is actually a really important factor when you're engineering. Because when you get artists like that, they expect to move and move and move and move, and like you got to keep up with that. You can just go ahead and tell them, give me like 1 second, just like slow down a little bit, like if it's getting a little overwhelming. And it can get overwhelming for people. Like I was starting to get overwhelmed myself, and like I can handle a lot of decent amount of sessions, but like I was getting like
the anxiety was starting to set in a little bit.
I mean, my hand was starting to shake. I was just like, what is happening?
The veins starting to come out the side of your neck.
Yeah. But it's just like it gets overwhelming really badly and such. So it's just like, all right, keep up with the pace, going. All right, cool. But like when you're working with like fast sessions, like just know your own pace. If it's getting too much, say something. Communication is key.
Yes,
I agree. It's called the talk back button. You can press the
it's
fucking
there for
button.
a reason.
Exactly. It's just like, give me like a second, and it's just like it's just for you to get your composure, and then you just keep going and you bang it out. So like those sessions are great if you can handle them.
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave it like that.
We appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, no problem.
That's all the time we got, listeners. So I thank Kevin Hughes for being on the show. One more time, what other platforms people can find you at?
It's mostly Instagram at Mixed by K Hughes. That's just where like I post all the stuff that like I'm doing. It's like up to date with like what I'm doing with my audio life. I post all like the music that I've been working on and everything. The recent project that I was just working on was Resounding's EP, We Are One. It comes out March 9th. Stay tuned. They also have a release party coming out on the 16th, which is going to be dope AF. There you can like follow all the people that like I've been working with and like showcases their music and such. So definitely take a listen if you're interested.
So that's the end of the 4th episode of an Industries Insight podcast. Make sure to go follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube to get the updates and listen to the podcast if you missed it. So until next time, I'm your host, Thomas Grabuznik, and I'll talk to you guys later. Signing off.